Well,
Chairs, those
I
are
will
nice.
reach out to the gentleman and let him
Okay.
acknowledge that we
Oh.
have it,
Yes,
and
we're
Andy's going to
close.
cover it with the park board.
Okay, yep, he's gonna talk to
Real
them.
close, sorry. I'm sorry.
Did I give you this, Angel? Okay,
I feel like I'm missing something.
Okay, it is 45.
Debbie coming up?
Ready? All right. Good evening. This is the Mayor's Agenda, City of Hannibal official public hearing, Tuesday, February 1st, 2022, 6:45, Council Chambers. Call this hearing to order. Lisa Peck, City Manager, proceed.
good evening. So we are having a public hearing, properly noticed. That's a lot of feedback, is it? Okay, that sounds better. Properly noticed regarding the potential conflict of interest for the emergency CDBG grant funding for the Union Street project. So the city obtained emergency community development block grant funding through the Mark Twain Council of Governments to fix the February 2020 collapse on Union Street. In conjunction with the engineering for the project, both the Council of Governments and the city were given incorrect information regarding procurement of the engineer. In order to receive the funds for the project, the city must ask CDBG for an exception to allow for the same engineer who provided the initial engineering for the application to continue to be the engineer for the actual CDBG project. As a part of the process, we need to hold this public hearing, and we also needed to obtain a legal opinion from the city's attorney regarding the conflict of interest exception, not violating state or local law under 4.B on the attached conflict of interest statement, which was attached to the documents that went out. So to that end, we have a legal opinion, and I believe that our city clerk will read that into the record.
This is dated January 12, 2022, regarding the Community Development Block Grant Program, prohibited conflicts of interest regarding a requested exception to allow engineering services for both the initial grant application and the Union Street collapse repair project to be provided by the same engineering firm. To whom it may concern, I've been requested to issue a legal opinion as to whether the use of the same engineering firm for both the initial grant application and the Union Street collapse repair project would violate state or local law noted under 4.B point on the DED conflict of interest policy, a copy which was attached to the agenda. Upon review of said policy, as well as state law and local ordinance, he notes as follows. The city obtained emergency community block grant funding through the Mark Twain Council of Governments to fix the February 2020 collapse on Union Street. In conjunction with the engineering for this project, both the Council of Governments and the city were given incorrect information regarding procurement of the engineer, and that specifically it was allowable to utilize the services of same engineering firm for both the initial grant application and the Union Street collapse repair project. This recommendation was incorrect as set out in Section 3 of the said DED conflict of interest policy. Upon review of the applicable law, I find no state law or local ordinance which prohibits the use of the same engineer for both phases of this project. A review of the records of the City of Hannibal leads me to the conclusion that all required procedures for letting the engineering portion of this contract have been followed, and there is no prohibition in state or local law against using the same engineer for both phases. As a result of the foregoing, it is my legal opinion that the use of the same engineer for both phases of this project will not violate state or local law. Further, it's my legal opinion that therefore the granting of this exception would not be a violation of state and local law. James F. Lemon, attorney for the City of Hannibal, Missouri.
Okay, so for the public purposes of public hearing, we have disclosed the nature of the conflict. That is, that following the incorrect guidance given by CDBG representatives, the city allowed the same engineering firm that did the initial engineering for the application to be the engineer on the project. We are also, for the public purposes of the public hearing, we have disclosed how the public disclosure happened, and the public disclosure is occurring at this public hearing that was regularly advertised and posted. And then we also need any comments that were received, that from the audience or that were received, to be noted for the record.
So I guess I'll call for public comments. Anyone who have comments regarding this matter, they raise their hand, come forward and be identified. There's no one in the audience to do such. Clerks, are any receipts? One. Okay, would you read that into the record, please? Sorry.
No problem. Taking note. We have one submission that was submitted to City Manager Lisa Peck, February 1st at 6:21 a.m. And this states, activities include the repair of a storm sewer collapse along Union Street. The engineering firm for which prepared the preliminary engineering report for the application was also selected as the engineering firm for the project after it was funded by CDBG. Because of the pending storm, I will not be attending tonight's meeting, but I believe there is a conflict of interest as stated above. Michael Hagan.
Are there any other receipts?
I did not receive anything myself, and I don't believe the city manager received any either. He has not provided me already.
No. So those are the elements that we needed to include in this public hearing. And then this portion of the waiver process, we'll submit the minutes from it to the Council of Governments and proceed with the request for the waiver.
I'll ask once more, anyone here to speak on behalf for or against the matter before us this evening, dealing with the CBDG grant?
Mr. Mayor, if I may real quick, I appreciate Mr. Hagan's comments that he submitted, and thank him for that. It is unfortunate with the weather that he wasn't here to expand on his comments there. But again, just wanted to put into the record that appreciate him taking the time to respond. So.
Very good. Any other comments? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and call this public hearing to a close. And we've got about 8 minutes for the regularly scheduled council meeting.
You hear about every one of them. Yeah. They make it mad.
I'm not even retired yet. I gotta, well, the 10th. Yeah, take a vacation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The City of Hannibal Official Council Agenda, Tuesday, February 1st, 2022, Council Chamber, 7 p.m. I'd ask clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Welch,
Here.
Beach, McCoy,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson,
Here.
Councilmember Franke, Mayor Hark,
Here.
Councilmember Bowen.
Here.
There being a quorum, I call this meeting to order. Mayor Pro Tem Dobson, would you do the invocation?
Heavenly Father, in our hearts we plan our course, but we pray that you establish our steps. I pray that we seek you for advice. Let us make decisions based upon what we know, but let us act based upon your wisdom. Please guide us, Lord. We place this meeting in your hands. We place our hearts and our minds in your hands so that you may direct us. Amen.
Amen. And our newly appointed fire chief, would you lead us to the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trying to swear in again.
Yes, Chief, thank you.
You're already swore in.
Council, at this time, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda as it was posted this Tuesday, February 1st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor, make a motion to excuse Councilman Veach.
Second.
Motion is second to excuse Councilman Beach. Thank you for helping with that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. See, minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regularly scheduled council meeting of January 18th, 2022.
So move.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion over those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. Now I need a motion to approve the payroll claims of the second half of January 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. Council, the next item on the agenda, Mr. Ling asked for his matter to be tabled at this time. Apparently he's under the weather as well, so we just table this matter until he gives us a new date.
He did ask for February 15th. so
February
he has already
15th?
requested that, yes.
So he'll be on the February 15th agenda. Next item on the agenda is Sean Schultz, Loafers Car Club. I'd say I'm looking here and it's doing improved, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I did the paperwork,
Sean and
so,
then it says John. So we
Okay,
have you both listed, so.
yeah.
all right.
Anyway, yeah, so, we've got two special event applications. We need to do this earlier. I told Alan next year on our car show, we'll do it before Christmas. But anyway, our 26th downtown car show, that's the first one. And the second one is, last year we moved our monthly cruise-ins down on Church Street from Main to 3rd Street, and it really worked well there. It was a good location, and we'd like to do it again there next year. I put on there April. We'll probably won't do it May because that's the day of our car show. June, of course, July is Tom Sawyer Day, so that's out, and August, September, and October. In September, depends on if we run into problems like we did last year with the steampunk. But whatever, that's kind of what we're looking for. So that's our request.
If you've requested the area first, I mean.
We did actually, but We let the steampunkers have it.
Just being good neighbors. huh?
We were, yeah.
Okay.
I love that location for the car show. Have you all ever considered, though, our brand new riverfront? It's beautiful. We have the entire parking lot off to the side where the Bubba's restaurant
We'd have
was.
to kind of check and see if, we got to have about 400 parking spots. And, the other thing is, people enjoy shopping downtown. And it's, a lot of people, that'd be a pretty good walk up there. Older people. So I kind of like, Main Street works, it's good for the merchants. So, I think, for the time being, we'll keep it there.
Okay. So, council, on both these events, it appears that the only thing we're missing is the hold harmless and sign the hold
Something I didn't
harmless.
sign.
All their matters are in order.
And
No objections from departments. They've all been notified.
trash.
And all we ask you do what we always ask everyone to do, and never been a problem with your group, is
Yeah.
pick up any
Right.
debris and trash that's left behind.
Yeah, I'll that to you. Somehow I didn't sign. And you just need one of those?
I've got both of them
You're
on
okay.
file, which get with me next week when the weather gets better.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah.
Thank
Don't worry,
you.
but-
So, on
Do we
the,
need 2 motions?
yes, let's go with the first one for the street closures for the monthly cruise in, first Saturday of April, June, August, and through October,
Make a motion for the monthly cruise pending the insurance.
or the hold
Or
harmless.
hold harmless,
The
sorry.
insurance
Yeah.
just needs-
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion's carried. Now need a motion to have the street closures, no parking signs for the annual car show on Saturday, March 7th from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Motion.
And a second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
I would like to add one thing if I can, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you for taking the time to come tonight. Over the past year, we've had a lot of times that people have requested things like this and haven't been able to make it. I said last year that I thought it was important that when we had these requests that a representative actually showed up. I understand the weather's not good, so hopefully we'll all get out of here pretty quick. But I just wanted to personally thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come and
ahead
request
and
this
do it.
formally.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried.
Okay.
Good
Thank you.
shape.
Appreciate it.
And
Thanks, John.
all right. Next item on the agenda is Melanie Nevels, Executive Director of Two Rivers and Industries Incorporated, for the annual report.
First of all, I know y'all got a copy of this, and we did not open August 3rd of 2019, it was 2020. I just now noticed I messed up on that date, I apologize. Over the last year, being reopened, there really hasn't been a whole lot of changes. With COVID variants and everything coming, we really thought July 1st we would be open again, and then another variant came and it slowed things down. And now we have another one. So we're still doing the same restrictions as we did prior. We did change, I'm not for sure of the dates, Mondays and Thursdays, we are now open till 5 o'clock, which it has picked up quite a few. Plus the weather's bad. We don't get a whole lot of people there, but Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 2, 7:30 to 1:30, sorry. And Mondays and Thursdays until 5. It has seemed to be working out better. We do still have a couple complaints. They can't get there on Mondays. I try to accommodate by staying later another night for that individual to come and see me, or I go in early. It works for some. We did have over 2020, from 2020 to 2021, we did have a 208% increase on our cardboard, giving us 186.97 tons in 21. We were open all of 21, where we were closed from March to August in 2020. I understand that. Still not taking plastics because of the storage and the delay. We have to let it set for so long. And it creates a lot of mass that has to be stored outside, and it blows and gets everywhere, and that's not a solution. So we're waiting for COVID to die in a very nice way. Also, I attached the 2022 holiday schedule that we will be closed. And I don't think I mentioned in this report, but I had mentioned it last year, our policy states, because we rely on public transportation, Oates, Marion County Services, to bring our employees to work. When Hannibal Public School closes, we close due to weather, because most of the other transportation services. So we are closed tomorrow due to weather. Does anybody have any questions or anything for me?
I got a few comments. I'm trying to pick a real nice way to say this, but I get a lot of phone calls about the fact that the citizens pay for this tax and that it's not really feasible for a lot of them to get there during those hours.
Okay. Can you direct them to call us and we can meet them there at another time?
For sure, I can do that.
Because we do get some of those, and I am there at between 6 and 6:30 in the morning. I meet quite a few people that can't come. I go in early. I have been there later in the evening to accommodate truckloads of other stuff. I just don't have the staff to be there all night long, every day.
Fair enough. That was my comment.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is April Azate. April here?
I thought I saw her hallway.
There we go.
So unfortunately, I couldn't be here a couple weeks ago. I think it was the January 4th meeting that it was passed. That anybody, even though it was, I think, very apparent that homeless individuals were targeted, anybody in parks after 10 p.m. would be fined or arrested, right?
Yeah, it's always been that way. It's nothing
But
new.
well, that was what was the second hearing, right?
No.
On January 4th?
The after-hours 10 p.m. park curfew has been on the books for at least 30 years, maybe 40 years.
Since I was in high school, I paid a fine for being in the park after 10 o'clock.
Yeah, you actually got it.
So what was the bill that was passed for January 4th?
It was to allow the Parks Department to direct that camping could be in specific places and to prohibit people from parking campers, et cetera, overnight without a permit. It did not ban homelessness. It did give the Parks Director the ability
No, not
to...
being homelessness.
It
Like, obviously
did
you
give
can't
the Parks
control that.
Director the ability to ask people to camp in particular locations. And I think the issue was that there have been some problems with Central Park, some people more or less camping in the bathrooms and people camping in the pavilion, and it caused problems for other people to use it. And so the idea was that by allowing the Parks Director to designate particular areas that we could avoid that type of a conflict. That was the original plan. There were some other issues raised. There was a councilman that raised the issue of fining and jailing, and that's not going to happen for a couple of reasons. Number one, Missouri Supreme Court has made it very clear that no municipal court is to fine anyone if they are indigent. And so there is a process in our courts for if anyone is indigent, all they have to do is show the judge that they're indigent and they will not suffer a fine. And in regards to jailing, it's a rare occasion when somebody goes to jail in a city court issue, because the idea is that about the only thing I have seen anyone jailed at in the 20-some years I've been doing it is if you're like a third or fourth offense stealing, those people will sometimes spend a little time in jail. And if it's like a serious physical assault, I've seen those people spend some time in jail. But it's a rarity. Our ordinances do provide that you can do up to a $500 fine and you can do up to 6 months in jail. But they've been that way for 75, 100 years, and it just doesn't happen. I think the problem is that there was a mixing of what was actually being done. There was discussions of the curfew, and the curfew's been on the books for, as the mayor said, and he would know because he was a cop, but it's been on the books for years and years and years and years. So there was an argument that, well, it's already there. We don't need to do anything, and that was the original discussion. But then the discussion that staff had was, well, regardless, we're not going to go and arrest homeless people for being in the park after 10 o'clock. What are other tools we could have? And one of the tools we talked about having was, what if we could designate some area in our park system where people could camp, where we could ask those people to go to that location and avoid it. So while I know it was characterized as being an anti-homeless agenda, quite frankly, it was an attempt to deal with a problem that we all know that's there. And quite frankly, the ordinance about you can't be in there after 10 o'clock is one that wasn't going to be enforced, because nobody wants to put a homeless person in jail or write them a ticket. It would be pointless. It's better to find a way for them to perhaps say, could you camp over here, because people are wanting to use this facility. So,
Okay, so
that's what originally started with.
Okay, so has something been discussed or finalized in regards to a camping area?
All that got done was pass the ordinance.
Okay.
At this point, we haven't done anything further. To my knowledge, no homeless people have been harassed or arrested or anything else. The idea is just, as the weather gets warmer and as people start wanting to use the facilities, et cetera, this would give us a tool to have a way to talk to people who might be homeless, who might be camped out in the areas that other people want to use, and say, hey,
So
we've
have there been
designated a different
instance of
area.
that? I know, I think Andy had brought that up that last meeting. Have there been incidents where people have been camping in the bathrooms, or I heard laying across the trails? Were reports made? And I guess I'm kind of confused as to why Andy would have to be dealing with this. Like, shouldn't the police be addressing it? So there's no commentary. I know Andy was really upset about everything, so I'm just kind of...
Andy, I think, was upset because what happens is people don't call the police when something like that happens. They complain to the Parks Department, hey, we can't use this facility, that facility, because there were people camped out there. They refused to leave when we came. So the complaint comes to the Parks Department. And so when the Parks Department sends somebody to talk to those people, and those people, if those people become violent at that point, HPD would be called. But if it's a situation where they're just trying to address it, they felt as if they had no other option. They couldn't suggest any, they didn't have anything to suggest to them.
So has the city collectively decided that it is best for them to first initially make contact with these people and not just...
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that there's been any...
Well, it's just kind of from my understanding that I think that Andy was really frustrated with some of the incidents he's had to deal with. And obviously, a lot of these homeless individuals are addicts or have mental health issues.
Sure.
And, some people, one, are either not comfortable addressing them or maybe can't put themselves in their shoes to address them. So it's kind of just like an aggravating, frustrating situation. So when you have somebody approaching you that is irritated, aggravated, like, hey, get off the trails, get out of the bathroom, obviously it's not going to be the best possible solution. Whereas maybe if an officer or somebody in authority were approaching saying, hey, you can't be here. I don't know if that's something that their department should have to deal with.
Well, and I wouldn't suppose to speak for HPD, but I see that we've got at least 2 representatives here. Chief or Lieutenant, did you all have any thoughts on that?
Have him come up, please.
Sure, come on up.
As I mentioned last meeting, the homeless issue is really the majority of what we do. It's not just in the it's mainly what we do with it's either some social disorders, not usually just as James is over. Rarely does that result in an arrest unless there has been violence or a burglary or something of that nature. Most of the time, we're trying to do is seek shelter for them. We also have been working with health services. They have programs to try to get not only housing, but try to get some underlying issues. Because merely finding them housing is resolve the issue. They don't really want that. This is a very complex issue. And really, this ordinance with cars really isn't a factor. That was just an isolated thing, some frustration with these people that encounters that and situations because of things can get out of control with that. As James said, the incarceration is an overriding circumstance, like I said, assault or felony. I can have Lieutenant elaborate for the council's benefit, for the community's benefit, the audience, but we have a working relationship. And I give her just 30 seconds to explain that really quickly.
Right, so roughly, marketing health, those are, that's the call out. We have a person out to quite regularly in regards to people that is a drug issue, and they have the resources, obviously, to help that person. So they try to work with them and whatnot with this ordinance. Marketing health that reached out to the city attorney and said, hey, we could do this, this, and this, and trying to even work with them because then they'll find have monthly. Second, that's more of our frequent flyers people are dealing with. Sometimes they fall off the map with marketing behavioral. A lot of community happens between us and them in order to try to make the community safer for the citizens.
And I should mention, we also work with the Salvation Army, some people know, and the church that was here the last time. We have an ongoing conversation with them as their facilities and for temporary, especially.
I have a quick question. Is HPD allowed to pick these people up and take them to like the embassy or anything like that? Or okay, I didn't know if you guys were allowed to take
We
them.
even transport people as long as they are willing to go. We don't take them.
Right.
Yes, we've even transported people if we want.
Okay, I'll just make sure nobody else had anything to say. So I've spoke with Mark Twain Behavioral, Comprehensive, and Preferred, which were the 3 that you and the chief had brought up last meeting. And I think that multiple people had said that there is funding available to get them into housing, get them the help that they need. So for one, Comprehensive has no idea why that was said, because they have no funding, no COVID money. That I think was also brought up for that. They actually reach out to other agencies because they don't have access to that.
Well, and to clarify, and I don't think I misspoke, but to the extent I did, Mark Twain Behavioral Health is the one that reached out to me and discussed the fact that they had funding and that they actually have a coordinator, an in-house coordinator, who tries to help people find housing. However, they did not want to rule out the fact that there are other mental health organizations in town, and they asked me specifically to mention the fact that Preferred and Comprehensive have different services, not the same types of services that they have, but that they have the ability to provide mental health at reduced cost and sometimes free cost. And that was the point I was trying to make in mentioning them, that I was not trying to build up one particular entity. I was trying to mention the fact that we had three.
I don't think it was about building up, but I feel like a lot of people are under the impression, or you're giving the impression, there's all these agencies available that they have access to where they can get funding. The problem is, one, especially individuals with mental health issues, especially if they don't have a guardian, most of them are not willing to check themselves in to get the help they need. And it's one of those things that you have to have patience. You have to know how to talk to them to try to get them the help that they need. On top of that, with COVID, as if there's already not a process to go through to get on a waiting list, COVID has pushed that back tremendously. So even if somebody last week were to go and try to get some type of housing, the agencies I've talked to, they said the waiting list is astronomical. It could be up to a year. And for any homeless person, like, that's a long time. And luckily with Embassy Church, and I've spoke with Donna and the individuals that she's been housing, and I'm so grateful that we can put them there. However, I do know that, they are doing this free will off of volunteers. They're needing donation. I talked to her tonight about donations, and the pastor talks with all the individuals coming in, but obviously he isn't a doctor, psychologist. And so for me, my issue with the last meeting in regards to no camping is what is the solution that we're providing versus just kind of making it a negative thing. And
Okay, the city is probably not in a place where they can afford to establish a homeless shelter. If that's what your proposal is, I suppose you can propose it, and if you can get a councilman
how many of our tax dollars have
propose
been
it, et
wasted
cetera, et
on
cetera.
things that we don't need to spend it on?
Well,
To me, when everybody up there took an oath, took an oath to do what is fair, just, right, like ethics, morals. Like, to me, right is right, wrong is wrong. And when I was younger, if you have the opportunity to help somebody, you help them, And the fact that we're not providing a solution to help them.
You have the opportunity. We aren't in a position where we have the opportunity to do that.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, if we have the opportunity, you can help somebody. But financially, the opportunity is not there.
Right, but we're saying, oh, you can't camp in the parks. But what solution are we providing? How many properties, either commercial or residential or land even, are owned by the city that are vacant or abandoned or...
But we're not saying they can't camp in the parks. That's what we're missing here. The Parks Director was given the authority to establish areas where people can camp.
Right, and I just asked James, what area is that?
And that hasn't been established yet. I would highly doubt.
So as
that
of right
anybody
now,
would
there's
want to
no
camp.
place for them to go, correct? Or no designated place
No
for them to go?
designated place.
Right.
Which is no different than it's been for the last how many years?
But the difference is when they have certain areas or places where they can seek some type of shelter, like I believe Welch had said that meeting that most of them would rather have some type of roof over their head than nothing. Having that is better than nothing. Having a dry, even though it's a concrete slab, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people in the community take them sleeping bags, see what they need. How many times have you guys left here and seen somebody on that pavilion and stopped to see if they need anything?
I don't.
Well, that's my thing is, to me, like, if you're taking an oath to do what's best for the community, for the people, the public.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have an oath, and I took an oath, and I understand my oath probably much better than you do if we want to sit down and have a long discussion about it some evening, which I'm not going to get into here.
More than happy to sit and talk with you.
But it is not my job to go around and put my hand out and help everybody up off the ground. People want to have to help themselves first.
Absolutely.
I went out and helped people for 22 years with a badge and doing what these people out here have done before. I can also tell you that I would rather see the parks director go up to somebody and say, hey, you shouldn't be in this area. I've got an area for you to go to, than sending the cop first. Because I'm going to tell you, most people that have a mental disorder or drug addiction have no interest in seeing a cop come up to them. That's the last person they want to see, and there's a threat there. So I'm one that encourages the park director or some of his employees to go up and say, hey, you shouldn't be blocking the bathrooms up. Don't do that. The pavilion's rented. You can't block it. Can you move to a different place? That's the whole idea of this.
See, I think it's an approach. You know, not all homeless people with mental health issues are in fear or are aggressive towards police. It's, I think, how you approach them.
But most of them that I dealt with, and April, I'm going to tell you, I'm old school. I've got out of law enforcement in 2011. But from my experience, when the police went up to a person who was a transient or homeless, I could go up and start talking, and sometimes immediately the attacks come out. Other times, I could be on 61 and see someone standing on the corner, stop, and hey, I might throw them one of my sodas that I have in the cooler in the car. Everything was fine. All I did was check and make sure they were not going to get out in traffic and cause a problem. We used to have that issue with people standing out to the intersection where Walgreens and CVS is, would go out and walk through traffic as people were stopped at the lights asking for money and donations. That was a recipe for disaster. Somebody will get run over. So we had to say, hey, don't do this. I mean, it's like you say, and I agree with you, it's a matter of approach. But I can also tell you there was a person in the community here that had some means that I went to school with. We knew each other on first name basis. And that person would tell me when they were sleeping outside in the cold, they did not want my help. They were perfectly content, I want to say living off the grid basically, because that's what it was. Didn't want my help, didn't want anything, and I'd say, well, hey, and why are you staying here? Because that's what I choose to do. And then we'd move to another place. I think our police do the best they can with what they have. The city is not in a position to run a homeless shelter, and I don't think that's really what you're requesting. But I do acknowledge that you want to see something better for those who are homeless, indigent, or requiring mental
Not
health services.
necessarily better, it's just if we're going to say no camping, okay, then before we pass that, can we make sure there's a designated area first is all?
Hold up just a second. May I jump in here? Because here's the thing. I keep hearing about how the staff of the city of Hannibal should figure out a solution to homelessness. Homelessness is a national problem. I'm not hearing about any fabulous solutions from communities that have much more in the way of resources, in the way of staff, in the way of money, in the way of social service organizations, which is usually who takes on these types of issues. Not hearing of any fabulous solutions that we can implement here because there isn't a good solution to homelessness. That's the problem. So I think it's a little bit simplistic to say, well, City of Hannibal staff figure out a solution to homelessness, because we aren't going to be able to do it. No one that I'm seeing has a good solution.
I think that I've seen several cities with solutions to provide either pods, mental health resources, or the
They're
community.
much bigger and much better funded than this city, and they have much more in the way of resources. And most of those are usually social service organizations who are taking up that slack.
Okay, so if it's a financial thing, how many, again, properties, either commercial, residential, or land, is available that it would ultimately not be a thing to have the city donate land if the community came together and raised money to either build a shelter, find some type of volunteer or staff, and make it a temporary thing until they can get into housing with any of those, well, two, not three, two of those that were brought up the first
The
time.
city is looking and did try to do an application with NECAC to put some affordable housing on city-owned lots. That application was not funded, but that is something that we're looking at doing and trying to do some things that would provide some more affordable housing.
Okay, and land has been discussed, or places?
Yes, we actually, the council passed authorization to donate the land to NECAC.
Okay, and then in regards to, I know I had asked James this before, but we kind of got sidetracked. Are there police reports or some type of report done by city staff that has had to address or approach these individuals? Like, have we kept track of this?
I don't know. I was asked to draft an ordinance that would allow the parks director to designate particular areas. And
does anybody up there, not just addressing you, does anybody up there know if there's been police reports?
If the police were involved, then there would be a police report.
Okay, since Andy's not a police.
Andy is not here, I'm not sure. We'd have to get that information from him. But if the police were called to an instance, there would be a police report.
My thing is, if we're dealing with one instance versus, I mean, hearsay.
I have anecdotal knowledge of many instances where it's just been brought up, hey, this is, this happened, or we just had to do this, or, whatever. So I anecdotally know of that. If you want to quantify numbers of that, we would have to look and see if that information is available.
Of all of the homeless people that I've addressed in town, I've never had one interaction that has turned violent or anything like that. So I just find it very hard to believe that there's all these aggressive homeless people in town. And again, obviously approaches everything, but
we have
I
not
feel like,
necessarily
especially
said,
a couple weeks ago at the meeting, I felt like the council was ultimately trying to be persuaded one way, as if this is a violent thing and these are violent individuals. And I've never had an issue approaching any.
PD would have some statistics for you on that. But, there are some instances where they are, and there are some instances where the individuals are not.
Okay, well, my next question would be that, he's not here, so I'm not even gonna ask that.
April, real quick, I did make the comments about the pavilion, and I had a lot of response from the citizens in my area. But I have actually done a little type of own mental thoughts here, and we didn't do this as a way to block the homeless from sleeping in the parks. What we did this is it created another resource for our parks department to use if they do have encounters.
Well, and I'm not against, like you guys have said, it's been in place for a long time. I'm not against people not being in the park, but from an outsider looking in and from multiple people that I've talked to in the community, obviously there's several people in the parks and the pavilion. There's been several people. And when you're saying there's no camping there and we're not providing a solution or have a designated area yet, it's absolutely heartbreaking because they have nowhere to go. And then I feel like it ultimately can create crime where they're breaking into buildings trying to seek shelter wherever.
Sure.
So just the lack of compassion, and
It's not a lack of compassion. It's a need of a resource for our parks department. When we look at this, we see that the homeless people are definitely being. This is a hardship for them. Mm-hmm. We know that. However, what we did is we didn't want our staff communicating with someone who, even if they perceived a threat as from an individual, they shouldn't have to deal with that.
I agree. I don't think that Andy or any of them should have to deal with it.
That's actually a job for our police department.
I agree.
And they take that on. I actually did a lot of this personal soul searching, how this wasn't morally right. But what I've come to the conclusion is this was a necessary step just to address the issue. Like you said, there's been, I'm not aware of any actual follow-up. I might be wrong on that. I don't think it's become an issue as of right now. With your thoughts and processes of getting volunteers to organize something, form a committee, or do something about it, I think that's a great idea. But as city council right now, we're not in a position to do that.
Curious, and I may have to direct this to the police chief or city manager. Since no place has been designated yet, has anyone been contacted and removed from the pavilion or any other place in the parks as of yet?
So an individual who had been utilizing the pavilion across the street, I believe, has had contact made with him and has been up to the homeless shelter that you talked about up
Embassy?
the hill. Yep,
Okay.
Embassy. And what I would say is that there would be no camping probably wintertime because that's not the season to camp and to allow people in 3-degree weather to be camping.
And we
someplace.
should be trying to offer services for people that are out in 3
We should be trying to connect people to services.
Correct.
And that I know for a fact PD has done. I know for a fact that Parks has done. I personally also have the brochure from the Harvest Outreach shelter, so I have that information and can share it with anyone that I come across. And as you know, from building commission meetings, I do share resources frequently.
And again, I think that that's great, but again, with most of these individuals, I mean, mental health and homelessness across the United States is a huge issue. And when they don't have a guardian and they're not willing to work with HPD or willing to take that help, that's the thing is I can't help them if they're not willing to help themselves, and it
Absolutely.
makes it difficult.
Absolutely.
My
Because
thing
they
is
have
that
the
unless we
free
try
will.
or offer some type of solution and offer that compassion as a community. So my thing that I would like to see is, because there are individuals like that, and believe me, I've dealt with many of them, having a designated area available, not just talking about, oh, let's see if we can make this happen. Having that available, because the embassy shelter, they're actually only open
I'm
if
familiar
it's
with
45
their
degrees or
hours.
lower.
I'm familiar with their hours and restrictions.
And it's like and I did speak with Donna, and she said the next couple days they are going to be open during the day, but typically their hours are just
I'm
6
aware.
p.m. to 7 a.m. So during the day, like the next couple days, they would typically be out in this weather.
And no one would be bothering them if they were in the parks because they would not be camping during the days. So,
I'm saying if we can provide a designated area to let them know, hey, this is a location where it's acceptable to camp.
we will be looking at that.
April, we haven't had a designated area for 40 years. And
Say that
that,
again.
we haven't had a designated area for 40 years, and that's my takeaway from your argument. I mean, nobody's not, I mean, I don't want to be called not compassionate. I did take an oath, like the mayor said, to defend and protect the Constitution and the laws and the ordinances of the city of Hannibal. In doing so, there's no camping in the park. There hasn't been. So it's our duty to enforce those. That's the oath that we took. Now, if you came in here, if we let people camp in the park for 39 and a half years, we walked in and said, no camping in the park anymore. I feel like, would have ultimately, absolutely have a responsibility to come up with a solution. This isn't a problem that we created, like the city manager said. I told you the other day when I talked to you, and it sounds like you have some stuff. I don't think anybody up here is against solutions. Let's work together. And if finding a designated place is the next step, and I believe that it is, I just don't think that we've got there yet. Let's do
Words
that.
are great, but actions are better. Talking about it and actually doing something about it is like the thing, you know what I
So,
mean?
but you're like the second or third person that's brought this up. And what I want to ask to all those people are, what are you doing?
What am I doing?
I mean,
Last winter, I actually turned my back patio at my business into a homeless shelter because nobody was willing to help them. I've personally, it's financially broke me personally paying my own money to put them in hotels, to get them out of the weather. It broke my heart because one of the homeless camps, DCFS got involved because there was a baby out and it was negative 22, I think.
I mean, my point, April, is did you come to us at that point when you said, hey, I'm setting up a homeless shelter? Like, is there any assistance out there? Did you contact City Hall? Did you contact
I've
other
contacted
non-for-profits,
tons,
like the
tons
JCs?
of resources.
I mean,
I
anybody
can give
like-
you dates, times, names, everybody.
I don't-
And
I
this is the
don't
thing, is they
disagree
only
with
have
you.
X amount of funding available. And so when they only have so much weekly or monthly,
But you're making the point for us. We're not financially set up to do that either.
I'm not asking you to financially put them into housing. I'm asking you to offer a designated for sure area that this is okay for you to camp so that they don't get in trouble. So there aren't any potential consequences.
Real quick, so if we just said the old amphitheater, 3 acre square lot, tomorrow, Andy designates it as camping. Problem solved? For now?
Well, that would give them a designated area where they know that if they're not willing to go to the shelter, that they know after 10 p.m. they're not going to get in trouble or get confronted by the police with, hey, you can't be here, because they know that is a designated area where we are allowed to be. And again, if they choose to want to stay out in the elements and they take a tent to wherever that is, they know that that's okay to be there.
Right, we can't force them. You can't. The police department can if
Absolutely
it's a designated area.
not. You can't help somebody that's not willing to take the help.
This is what I'm saying. We've been talking about this for 30 minutes now. Let's work on solutions and where we want to go from here. And I understand
That's not up to me.
But you're the one that's on the agenda.
Right,
I mean,
but I'm saying, you're saying, okay, we can look into that, we can talk about it, but again, words and actions, that's two different things.
This is not going to be a city-oriented drive for this thing. It's just not going to be. What you're going to need to do is you're going to find some sort of group or organization on board with doing this. If you do that, we could probably come up with something as a designated spot.
A designated spot.
So there could be no designated spot, either in a park or land that the city owns?
As of right now, it's not something that I personally would want to push on the city because it is a financial obligation. Morally, I would love to see something like that.
So it's a financial obligation how?
We don't have the money to do something like that. Offer a shelter.
No, I'm not saying, but I'm saying even land or an area in a
Also,
park.
would you want all of our citizens to be responsible for a spot that we all approved? And I mean, it's on the citizens to be responsible for that.
Responsible for what?
Okay, so I have property, and if somebody goes on my property and they get hurt, what are they going to do?
How's that any different than if somebody were to get hurt on the city property now?
Because we have ordinances in place from this time to this time and from this use to this use. Laws and ordinances on the books, so that's the difference.
I don't think
If they're using
you
the property,
understood
if they're using the property legally in an approved method, that's right. If they're not, like after hours, then that's a liability.
Council, the time usually allotted is 5 minutes to discuss these matters, and this is a large enough matter that required more, but I'm going to have to cut this off. This is a matter that we need to look at. I hear what you're saying. Designate a spot. That's what this all comes down to. We need a spot for people to be able to tell people where they can be. We'll look into that, and someone will be calling you to give you an idea of what we've come up with, and it'll be sooner than later.
Okay.
All right? Thank you. Megan, Director of HCVB.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you had in your packets, I have a request for the mayor to be able to sign a contract in the amount of $5,000 for a CRM software. It's customer relationship management. It's a platform. As Convention Visitors Bureau, we book conventions, bus tours, different groups, organizations. We had a CRM platform for about 10 years. It has not been supported. It basically went out of business, has not been supported for the last 5. So my sales manager looked into new CRMs. We got different quotes. One was $17,000, one was $9,000, then $6,000 annually. The one that we ultimately agreed would be the best solution for us was Simple View, which is a $5,000 cost for the software. That includes the training and will include the information from our old system to be ported into the new. The mayor, or pardon me, the city attorney did look over the contract. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Is that an annual renewal of the 5,000, or is that a one-time charge of 5,000?
The 5,000 is a one-time fee, and then it's a $199 monthly charge, but there's no other, the $5,000 is just the upfront cost to get the software.
Thanks.
Any other questions? There'll be resolution 2391-22 to follow. Thank you. Darren Gordon, General Manager, Board of Public Works. Carrying your phone, I thought it was a coffee cup.
I'm ready to go.
There. All right. Good evening, Darren.
Good evening, Mayor Hart, members of the council. I will give you the, you have a memo from myself talking about a master purchase agreement. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of that memo. Right now, we purchase power from approximately 5 purchase providers, power providers. They are generators. We would like to add Ameren Corporation to that portfolio. It will help strengthen our portfolio. It will give us a 6th bidder on our power. I cannot tell you what it will cost, and what happens is we take and put this agreement into place, and then we just simply use it. We can use it on a daily, hourly basis, and that's what we do with the other 5 power providers. I have presented this to our board. They've approved it. What we would like is to have Mayor Hart to execute it per Mr. Lemon's recommendation. That is the end of the memo.
Any questions regarding this resolution? The 2392-22 to follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll bring up resolution 2391-22. I need a motion to have the clerk read this resolution, call the roll for adoption.
So move.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Resolution number 2391-22, a resolution of the City of Hannibal authorizing the mayor to execute a customer relation management agreement between the city and Simple View LLC for development and hosting of CRM software for the Hannibal Convention and Visitors Bureau in the amount of $5,000. Council members Welch,
Yes.
McCoy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson,
Yes.
Mayor Hark,
Yes.
and Councilmember Bowen.
Yes.
Declare resolution 2391-22 duly approved and adopted on this day. We now have resolution 2392-22. I need a motion to have the clerk read this resolution, call the roll for adoption.
So move.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Resolution number 2392-22, a resolution of the City of Hannibal authorizing the mayor to execute a master power purchase and sale agreement between the city and Union Electric Company, DBA Ameren, Missouri, regarding purchase power for the Board of Public Works. Councilmembers Welch,
Yes.
McCoy,
Abstain.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson,
Yes.
Mayor Hark,
Yes.
and Councilmember Bowen.
Yes.
I declare resolution 2392-22 duly approved and adopted on this day. That's the end of our agenda as it's posted this evening. Need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?